Bytes of Pi. Today we're going to go over the installation and use of the ChristmasTreePi project in JGrasp for Java. We've got a lot of instructions to go through, so I'll try and be as detailed. If I go too fast, please feel free to slow down the video or pause it at a certain place and replay it. First, what we're going to need to do is go to GitHub and go to the GitHub Bytes of Pi ChristmasTreePi project and download the project. Here I am on the master branch. I'm going to clone or download. If you're not familiar with Git or you don't have Git loaded onto your machine, that's fine. I'm just going to go through the instructions of how to download it as a zip. So once I've downloaded it, you can see here I've got the zip file. What I'm going to want to do is create a nice location where I'm going to drop my project. I like to use 7-zip to unzip my project, but you don't have to use that. You can use regular Windows, whatever. Just take the project folder and drop it in where your workspace is, where you're going to use it, and now you should have all the code and all the libraries you need to set up the project. Next thing we're going to do, again, this is the JGrasp specific project. We need to set up JGrasp in order to use the project. Now there's a couple settings that I'd like to set off first before we get started. So primarily, if you go to Settings, CSD, Windows Settings, first thing you want is line numbers. Essentially, this gives you this puts the little line numbers on your code, so you can tell whenever you have issues or problems, you can easily debug by seeing what line the error is happening at. So always make sure that line numbers is checked. Secondly, we'll go to the workspace, and it'll automatically open up this window, and you'll be in this CSD tab. Now there are two settings in here that we want to make sure that are set. By default, you can see these little square buttons. What those square buttons indicate is this is the default setting for JGrasp, and I want to customize it. In order to customize these settings, you have to uncheck these buttons. So the two custom things I want to do is first the tab size. I unchecked this button. It defaults at 3 for me. If I uncheck it, I want to set it to 4. What this is doing is essentially setting the tab size. So every time you hit tab, it's going to go over 4 spaces. What JGrasp Editor considers 4 spaces. The second thing is the soft tabs. By default, soft tabs is turned on. We want to make sure that that's unchecked. And what that's going to do, soft tabs, what it does is every time you hit the tab key, instead of putting a single tab character, it'll actually put in this number of spaces. So if I had this on and I hit tab, it would actually put in 4 spaces rather than the actual tab character. This is going to become critical later on, but make sure to set that up. Alright, now we are in. Let me refresh it, and now I should have my project folder ready to go. What I want to do is I want to navigate to the JGrasp project. So cracking it in there's an SRC folder, and go to main and Java, and you'll find this Christmas Tree GPJ project. So just go ahead and double click that. What that does is it opens up a JGrasp project. I took the liberty of kind of putting all the key Java classes we'll need for this project in this project here. But you'll still need to do some settings before we actually crack this open. What I do is I right click on the project itself and go down to path, class path. Now this will open up this window again, defaulting to this path tab and this path subtab. On the subtabs, you'll want to go to the class paths tab. What we're going to do here is we're going to add the open source jars that we need. We're going to need an open source jar to play the MP3 files that we want to play for our Christmas tree, and also we want to bundle up the Raspberry Pi jars so we can turn pins on and off. So what I'll do here is go to Browse. It's not in the Java directory. You'll have to back up one, and along a sibling folder to Java is Resources. We'll click on the Resources folder, and then there's a library folder in here. Here you'll see a whole bunch of jars. What we're going to do is we're going to add these jars to the project one by one. JGrasp isn't user friendly, so we have to do this one by one. And I'll fast forward here. so you won't see it. I'm not going to be adding these two jars, the JMF and the MP3. These are old Java libraries. I find that JLayer is a lot better when playing MP3s, but I left it in there just for historical sake. So I choose it, I hit OK, and then suddenly my jar is included. I'm going to continue to do this for the rest of the jars. Okay, now that I've added all my jars, I have to add one other thing, and essentially we want to all these resources like the MP3 files, instructions, even the tree JPEG that we're going to use, they're all in a resources directory. So I'm going to browse here. I'm going to go up one, actually up two. I want the resources. So this resources folder, you can see in the resources folder I have instructions and music and Python, all these different subfolders that I need access to. So I'm going to add resources to my class path. And done. All right, so now I should have all these jars and the resources in my class path, and I hit OK. All right, last thing to do to make sure that it's all set up. It's already got a demo instructions and music, so all I need to do is open up Christmas Tree Runner, and actually I need to compile everything. So in my project, I need to hit the compile. What that'll do is, looks like I haven't updated this. I'll update this in the latest. So essentially I'll be taking this out. This is the old Java library that I told you about. All we need to do is take that out. And let's try that again. Recompile it. All right, it compiles cleanly. And now we will run it. The music is pretty loud in this section, so I'm going to speed up time so you can see the first application, and then we'll get back to the details. It's off. Okay, so now what I want to go through is how do I modify my tree? So again, you see how my tree is lit up. The detail for the strands, how I set up my channels, is in this swing util init strands. So here I'm just creating a new strand. We have a custom strand object. I'm not going in this video. I'm not going to go through all the different objects. You can go at either. I'll set up another video to kind of go through, walk through that, or you can kind of go through it yourself. Bottom line is that every controllable strand has a different color. I'm creating a different color strand. So I have green, blue, red, white, and multi. And here, my tree, the top strand is white, then the next strand is blue and red, green, then white, blue, and red. And lastly, this multicolor strand, which covers the entire tree, is on channel 8. The next part of the code actually adds the lights to the tree at XY coordinates. If you're familiar with swing, essentially it's starting to add, I have a function that kind of does loop. It kind of programmatically figures out how to add the loop, add the lights. I won't go through that in this one, but essentially that's setting it up. So you'll want to modify this to make the tree look like your tree. Finally, how do I program for my own music? That's a good question. What we're going to need to do is first off, you need to drop your music into the music folder. So here you can see in source main resources, there's a music folder where you have your MP3s. There's some sample MP3s that are royalty free here. I have my own that I ripped from my CDs that I can use for my personal use. Drop your MP3 into that environment. Next, you're going to want to create an instructions that you want to run with. So if I have my own instructions, there should be what we'll have here is what you'll have in your system is a template instruction. Let me pull that over here. Copy and okay, so you'll have a template instructions. I won't go over the instructions in depth, but the first line, I mean, just basically the first line is your MP3, and this one I'm just going to use my Wish You Merry. This next line tells you whether I'm going to use a virtual tree or the Raspberry Pi tree. This gives me an easy way programmatically to either turn on swing, or if I'm actually on the Pi, to use the Pi. If you use the Pi on your local, nothing's going to happen because it's not a Raspberry Pi. The following set of instructions you can kind of see here is essentially milliseconds. So the first, you can see every instruction is kind of like a line that's separated by colons. Now the first section is how many milliseconds into your song you want the instructions to be carried out. The next section is which channels you want turned on. So as you can see right here, right off the bat, I want all 8 of my channels turned on. The next section between these, you can see there's nothing there, is how many channels I want to turn off. And after this colon here, the program just ignores it. It doesn't care about it, but I'm using this here so I can visually see as I modify my sequence different placeholders, and we'll get to that in the future. All right, so now I have my template here. I'm just going to, I'm going to create my own template. I'll just create my own template, copy, paste, Bytes of Pi. Okay, so I got a bop template, and I'll just refresh it here, and we'll use this to play with. All right, so I have my list of instructions pointing to my custom MP3. I'm going to go to Christmas Tree Runner, and I want to use that. I want to use the bop instructions instead of Wish You Merry. So I will create bop. All right, now that I'm ready to run with my sample instruction file. The instruction file, as you saw, had buttons at the top. Essentially, what it'll do is it'll play your MP3, and it will give you a chance to capture the times when you want light changes. So there's 3 buttons. There's a verse 1, a verse 2, and a bridge. You don't necessarily have to do it at those points. They're just going to put markers in your temporary instruction file. I'll run it right now so you can see. And at the end of capturing all of the times in your music, you'll want to dump it out. So let's run it, and I'll show you what I mean.
At this point, the virtual tree shows and the music I selected begins to play. You're going to want to ignore any light changes. If you're using the template, you won't see any because they won't really match up to your song. You're going to spend this time clicking on the first 3 buttons at the top to the beat of the song. Each click will put a placeholder tag at that time in the song. When you want to tell yourself to use a different light pattern, so if you want the lights to go from top to bottom, and then at a certain point in the song you want to change it to maybe go to the center or spread out, I start clicking on a different button. The verse 1, verse 2, and bridge buttons really don't mean anything other than a visual cue later on when I want to change a pattern. You don't have to actually click those buttons on the correct verse chorus number. When you're done with the capture, you're going to go click on that last red time cap dump button to generate your new pattern. From here, we're going to edit the pattern you've captured.
So what that time cap dump is, I'll go back up here. What it did is it created, let's see, let's refresh. It should have created, let me see, it's probably in my projects folder here. Yeah, okay, it created this time dump out file. So this is a sample of every point in the song where I want to capture. So I'll go through how do I modify this to make it look nice. All right. So also in the project, you will see a light patterns Excel file. So I'm going to crack that open. And here I put in certain patterns that fit to my tree. So I can turn on and off different lights in different patterns. I'm going to take this sample pattern. I'm going to just copy it over to an end so I can add my new music. I'm just going to wipe all this stuff out. All right. Now I'm going to take, now that I'm in my sample time dump out, I want to go to Edit, Find and Replace, and I'm going to find all of my colons, and I want to replace them with tabs. Now, this is where that tab thing came into play. I'm going to, just over here, I'm going to, it doesn't like, if I hit tab here, it's actually going to tab to the next control, so that's not really helpful in this case. So I kind of cheat, and in the text file I create a tab, I just tabbed over, and I'm going to cut it and paste it, Control C, Control V. So now it'll find all the colons and replace them with tabs. So I hit replace all, and you can see all throughout my time capture it now replaced it with tabs. This will come in handy. So essentially I'll highlight all, hitting Control A, and copy that. Go over to my Excel spreadsheet and paste it in. Now I have an easy to modify spreadsheet of times. So you can see every time I clicked a new button, it had a little placeholder here, verse 1, verse 2. What I like to do is in my different verse patterns, I like to kind of go and kind of delete the verse I'm working on. So delete all the X's. All right, so I've deleted all those X's, and I'll want to use a pattern there. So this pattern in my sample looks this big. I may want to start off with a chase down full. Actually, this looks a little more on size. Let's copy this. So essentially, I'm turning on this light and turning off these, and it gradually turns these lights on and turns these lights off. Go to my sample. All right, I'm just putting it over here, and I'm just going to paste it in. Maybe I want to repeat that sample. I'm just going to kind of repeat that sample in here. You can see copying and pasting. I don't want to necessarily get that. Okay. All right, so my pattern is done. All right, so I have my first pattern done for this first verse. Second verse, maybe I'll want to do a different pattern. I'll want to do a smoosh inwards. I do let's see, I did a chase, yeah. All right, so I want to do a smoosh inwards. So essentially, the lights will start at the top and bottom of the tree, and work inwards and go on from there. So I'll just kind of put that here in my little workspace and plop it down. All right, I'll maybe want to repeat that pattern a little further. Okay, so I'll keep doing this until I get the total of my song. All right, once I've gotten my song, here's the full sample that I've done previously for this song. I'll want to copy it all the way down to the end. Copy it. No, we don't, and then paste it into my sample file. So let's bring that up again. So in my sample, main resources, oh, not music, instructions, remember I was using bop. All right, so now I'm going to replace this bop with my music. Now, I'm using tabs. I need to change these tabs back to spaces. So I'll go back again to Edit, Find, or Replace. And instead of finding we want to find tabs, and we want to replace them with colons. So you can see I'm finding the tab and replacing it with colons. Now, JGrasp isn't great for this because I have to do this twice. Sometimes, you see, it didn't actually, if two tabs are together, it doesn't actually pick it up and kind of skips it. So I'll need to hit replace again to make sure that it's solid. I'll just hit replace a couple times to be safe. All right. Now that I've got my instructions, I'll save it. Now I'll go back to my Christmas tree runner, and I will run it again. Now I should see my virtual tree. Once I get all that down and I'm ready to go, I've made some changes to my Java file for my lights. What I'll want to do now is I want to package all this stuff up into a jar for delivery. Now, okay, bundled along with this is a Gradle, Gradle.bat, and what this will do is it'll take all your stuff and package it all together into one master jar. So what you'll need to do in the command line is Gradle w clean build. Whoops. Okay. And what that'll do is it'll package all that up, and what that did is it compiled all your jars and all your resources, packaged it all up, and it created, if I go back to my master, there's a build directory with a libs directory, and it created me this Christmas tree jar. This is what we'll need to run our apps on the Pi and drop it down. Thanks for watching. This concludes the instruction video for JGrasp and the Christmas Tree Pi project.